This is what happened in the time of Xerxes. The Xerxes who ruled over 127 provinces, stretching from India to Kush. At that time, King Xerxes reigned from his royal throne in the citadel of Susa. And in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. The military leaders of Persia and Media, the princes and the nobles of the provinces were present. For a full 180 days, he displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor and glory of his majesty. And when these days were over, the king gave a banquet lasting 7 days, enclosed in the garden of the king's palace for all the people from the least to the greatest who were in the citadel of Susa. The garden had hangings of white and blue linen, fastened with the cords of white linen and purple material, to silver rings on marble pillars. There were couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. Wine was served in goblets of gold, each one different from the other, and the royal wine was abundant, in keeping with the king's liberality. By the king's command, each guest was allowed to drink with no restrictions, for the king instructed all the wine stewards to serve each man what he wished. Now, Queen Vashti also gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. On the 7th day, when King Xerxes was in high spirits from wine, he commanded the 7 eunuchs who served him, Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, to bring before him Queen Vashti, wearing her royal crown in order to display her beauty to the people and nobles, for she was lovely to look at. But when the attendants delivered the king's command, Queen Vashti refused to come.
Vashti!
No, Xerxes. The king became furious and burned with anger.
Vashti!
No, Xerxes. Since it was customary for the king to consult experts in matters of law and justice, he spoke with the wise men who understood the times and were closest to the king. Karshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, the 7 nobles of Persia and Media who had special access to the king and were highest in the kingdom. I said no, Xerxes, for the last time.
Why not?
Well, if you can't figure that out, there's no hope for you.
Her behaviour is unacceptable. Can the nobleman come and help me, please? According to the law, what must be done to Queen Vashti? She has not obeyed the command of King Xerxes that the eunuchs have taken to her.
Then Memucan replied in the presence of the king and the nobles, Queen Vashti has done wrong, not only against the king, but against all the nobles and the peoples of all the provinces of King Xerxes. For the queen's conduct will become known to all the women. And so they will despise their husbands and say, King Xerxes commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, but she would not come. This very day, the Persian and Median women of the nobility who have heard about the queen's conduct will respond to the king's nobles in the same way. There will be no end of disrespect and discord. Oh, please, this is completely ridiculous.
Keep reading, please. We want to find out what happens next.
Therefore, if it pleases the king, let him issue a royal decree and let it be written in the laws of Persia and Media, which cannot be repealed, that Vashti is never again to enter the presence of King Xerxes. Really? You're going there?
Keep reading.
Also let the king give her royal position to someone else who is better than she. Then when the king's edict is proclaimed throughout all his vast realm, all women will respect their husbands from the least to the greatest. Give me a break.
Read.
The king and his nobles were pleased with this advice, so the king did as Memucan proposed. Of course they did. I know. Read. He sent dispatches to all parts of the kingdom, to each province in its own script, and to each people in their own language, proclaiming that every man should be ruler over his own household in his own native tongue. Okay, that's it. I'm going anyway. You don't have to force me, and when you calm down and sober up, Xerxes, you will regret this. Later, when King Xerxes' fury had subsided, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what he had decreed about her. See, I was right. It's too late now, though. Then the king's personal attendants proposed, let a search be made for beautiful young virgins for the king. Let the king appoint commissioners in every province of his realm to bring all these beautiful young women into the harem at the citadel of Susa. Let them be placed under the care of Hegai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women, and let beauty treatments be given to them. Then let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. Of course, I should have seen this coming. The younger woman, you're so predictable. This advice appealed to the king, and he followed it. Of course he did. Now there was in the citadel of Susa a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin, named Mordecai, son of Jair, the son of Shammai, the son of Kish, who had been carried into exile from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, among those taken captive of Joachim, king of Judah. Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This young woman, who was also known as Esther, had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter when her father and mother died.
Very nice.
When the king's order and edict had been proclaimed, many young women were brought into the citadel of Susa and placed under the care of Hegai. Esther was also taken to the king's palace and entrusted to Hegai, who had charge of the harem, and she pleased him and won his favour. Immediately he provided her with beauty treatments and special food. He assigned her 7 female attendants. From the king's palace, and moved her and the attendants into the best place in the harem. Esther had not revealed her nationality and her family background because Mordecai had forbidden her to do so. Every day Xerxes walked back and forth near the courtyard of the harem to find out how Esther was and what was happening to her. Before a young woman's turn came to go into King Xerxes, she had to complete 12 months of beauty treatments prescribed for the women, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with perfumes and cosmetics. And this is how she would go to the king. Anything she wanted was given her to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. In the evening she would go there, and in the morning return to another part of the harem to take care of Shazgaz, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She would not return to the king unless he was pleased with her and summoned her by name. When the turn came for Esther, the young woman Mordecai had adopted, the daughter of his uncle Abihail, to go to the king, She asked for nothing other than what Haggai, the king's eunuch who was in charge of the harem, suggested. And Esther won the favour of everyone who saw her. She was taken to King Xerxes in the royal residence in the 10th month, the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign.
I seem to have misplaced the crown.
It's on the table.
On the table.
Now the king was attracted to Esther more than to any of the other women, and she won his favour and approval more than any of the other virgins. So he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. And the king gave a great banquet, Esther's banquet, for all his nobles and officials, and he proclaimed a holiday throughout the provinces and distributed gifts with royal liberality. When the virgins were assembled a second time, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. But Esther had kept her secret, her family background and nationality. Shh. Just as Mordecai had told her to do. For she continued to follow Mordecai's instructions as she had done when he was bringing her up. Ring, 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 ring. I'm so sorry. I have to get this. It's Mordecai. I'll be super quick. Hey, cuz, what's up? They what? Who? Oh my goodness. Yes, I'll tell him straight away. During the time that Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, became angry and conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. But Mordecai found out about the plot and told Queen Esther, who in turn reported it to the king, giving credit to Mordecai. And when the report was investigated and found to be true, the two officials were impaled on poles. Ouch. All this was recorded in the book of the annals in the presence of the king. Chapter 3. After these events, King Xerxes honoured Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, elevating him and giving him a seat of honour higher than that of other nobles.
All kneel in the presence of Haman.
All the royal officials at the king's gate knelt down and paid honour to Haman, for the king had commanded this concerning him. But Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honour. What? Oh no, okay, sorry, I just have to make a really quick call. Hey, cuz, can you talk? Look, I got to be quick because I'm in the middle of a thing. Yeah, but why won't you kneel in front of Haman? You're going to get yourself into trouble. Okay, I guess that makes sense. You know who's going to be angry? Hey, listen, I've got to go. Okay, you too. Be careful. Then the royal officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, why did you disobey the king's command? Day after day they spoke to him, but he refused to comply. Oh, this is not good. Therefore they told Haman about it to see whether Mordecai's behaviour would be tolerated. For they told him that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel down and pay him honour, he was enraged. Oh no, I knew that was going to happen. Yet having learned who Mordecai's people were, he scorned the idea of killing only Mordecai. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout the whole kingdom of Xerxes. This is bad. This is very bad. Ring, 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 ring. I'm so sorry. I'll turn this off. I promise. I just have to get this. I've got to be quick, cuz. Yeah, I told you he was going to be angry. You better be careful. This is out of control. Hey, don't call me anymore, okay? It's too risky for both of us. In the 12th year of King Xerxes, in the first month, the month of Nisan, the poor, that is, the lot, was cast in the presence of Haman to select a day and a month, and the lot fell in the month of Adar.
The 13th day of the month of Adar.
Then Haman said to King Xerxes,
There is a certain people dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom who are keeping themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of other people, and they do not obey the king's laws.
Oh, that's not good.
It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. So if it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them. And I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury.
So the king took his signet ring from his finger and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews.
Don't worry about the money. Just go ahead with the people.
Then on the 13th day of the first month of the royal secretaries were summoned. They wrote out in the script of each province and in the language of each people all Haman's orders to keep the king's satraps, the governors of the various provinces and the nobles of the various peoples. These were written in the name of King Xerxes himself and sealed with his own ring. Dispatches were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the Jews, young and old, women and children, on a single day, the 13th day of the month of Adar, and to plunder their goods. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality so that they would be ready for that day. The couriers went out, spurred on by the king's command. The edict was issued in the citadel of Susa. Then King and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Susa was bewildered. Okay, now we're going to skip forward a few chapters and bring us up to today's reading, chapter 7. But I need to fill you in on a couple of important events to set the scene for chapter 7. Ring, 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 ring. I'm so sorry, I promise this is the last time. What is it, cuz? Are you okay? Hey, did you hear about the decree to annihilate our people? Where are you? And what's that noise? It sounds like wailing. Oh, right. He's wearing sackcloth at the city gate, and there's a bunch of other Jews there, and they're all wailing and fasting. What are we going to do, Mordecai? Yeah, absolutely, I can help. I'll do whatever I can. Tell me what you're thinking. Okay. Right. Oh. Well, yeah, I can plead our case to the king. I can try, but it's against the law. If I go before him and he doesn't hold out his gold scepter, I could be put to death. And the other issue is he hasn't called on me for months, so I'm not even sure he's going to receive me, but I can try. Listen, I have an idea. Can you gather all the Jews in Susa and fast for 3 days? I'll fast as well, and then I'll go to the king, and if I perish, I perish. Okay, sorry, back to filling you in. So, Esther followed through on her plan. She got dressed up, went to the king's court, and when he saw her, he held out his golden scepter, and Esther approached the king and asked him and Haman to come to a special banquet so she could put forward her special request. Okay, now the scene is set. Let's see how the drama unfolds in chapter 7. So the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet. And as they were drinking wine on the second day, the king asked again,
Queen Esther, what is your petition? It will be given you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted.
If I have found favour with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition, and spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king.
Who is he? Where is he? The man who dared to do such a thing.
An adversary and enemy, this vile Haman!
No!
Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen. The king got up in a rage, left his wine, and went out into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was reclining.
Will you even molest the queen while she is with me in this house?
What? No! You've got it all wrong. I wasn't.
That's enough. Silence.
As soon as the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Then Harbona, one of the eunuchs attending the king, said, "A pole reaching to the height of 50 cubits stands by Haman's house. He had it set up for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king."
Impale him on it.
So they impaled Haman on the pole he had set up for Mordecai. Then the king's fury subsided. So, as you can see, Haman got what was coming to him, and God's people were spared, thanks to Mordecai and Esther's courage, and ultimately God's plan. Over to you, Eunuch John, for the sermon.